Good morning, good afternoon, and we right now today have John Ferris with us. He's one of the people who've actually is writing a book written about the Noah's Ark, and I would like to introduce you. Good afternoon, John, for being on the show and being a part of this session and series that we're actually making.
Good afternoon, Howard. Nice to speak to you.
Good. So, John, I'm going to ask you a set of questions regarding you. I hear that you're writing a book regarding Noah's Ark. Can you tell us a bit more about what made you decide to write that and what's in the book? I've actually had a bit of a read. I'm halfway through, and it's a fantastic book. It's got a lot of insight. So please share that with the viewers who are going to be seeing this.
Well, like a lot of people, I have been terribly interested in Noah's Ark and knowing more about it, apart from what is already out there. And I had seen some information where in about 2005, some scientists got together and they had discovered an impact crater in the Indian Ocean, and they claimed that that may be the source of the flood in the Noah's Ark story. They gave a time frame of about 3000 BC, but there wasn't a lot of information to back it up. And then I found something just last year, an article that had been written, or a book that had been written by some aeronautical engineers, who had found something in the British Museum, an artifact, which was a record of the night skies and a particular asteroid impact. And they were actually able to nail down the time of that impact absolutely precisely to the day. And they had, and from the information that they had from this ancient artifact, it actually gave a trajectory. And that trajectory went over this impact site in the Indian Ocean. And so these two things tied together, and the more I looked into it, the greater the detail that I was able to discover.
Well, and how many people do you think in the Christian world would actually agree with you? Or like, I mean, obviously, this is groundbreaking. This is something very new. It's a different perspective. So, do many Christians actually accept what you have that the research and what you've presented, basically?
Well, I have presented some of the information to them, and there is some acceptance because. And there is a bit of resistance because people don't like to change their minds about things. They believe that they've heard all of the truth that there is.
Yes, absolutely right. That's true. That's the main biggest reason is that a lot of people find it hard to change their beliefs that they've held on for all their lives, basically. But facts are facts from what I've read so far from your book, and you seem to have given empirical evidence. It's astonishing to see that there's a possibility that we could have had it wrong. And I'm quite surprised that a lot of the people aren't really taking on this as a new revelation, something that's going to actually, you're not negating religion, you're just basically proving the time and the date it happened and where it happened, which a lot of the historians, whether Muslim, Christian, or Jews, don't have the way you actually put it.
Oh, yes. Well, it has been possible to nail that date right down, and it's 775 years different to the traditional Christian date. And well, there'll be some traditional people who will raise their eyebrows and say, "Oh, this guy must be wrong."
Yes.
But I'm happy if they can prove me wrong, I'm also happy because they will have some information that I don't already have.
Well, from what I've been reading, I don't think it's going to be easy to prove you wrong, John. I can guarantee you that. You give a compelling evidence. You give compelling evidence.
Yes, I believe so. And it all originates in the fact that I keep asking questions. I've had a question about Noah's Ark, and I'll come up with a particular point, you know, in the level of knowledge. And then when you get to that point, there are more questions that arise, and you just keep asking question after question after question and finding the solution, and finally it comes together.
Absolutely. And when you were saying discussing about people's beliefs, now coming down to the discussion we were going to have with you today, you are right. Some people hold this belief that whatever it may be, like the lost 10 tribes, of Israelites. Now, the Pashtuns, I'm not sure, I've sent you my website if you had a look at that. That also is very, very difficult for people to swallow, especially the Pashtuns themselves, because they've been brainwashed into thinking that anything to do with Israelis or Jewish is evil, is bad, and we can never be a part of that. And there's a lot of tribes out there, John, that claim to be the Israelites, but the Pashtuns are the only ones that have the most compelling and empirical evidence, whether historically, archaeologically, and the Jews themselves have actually gone out and did DNA tests and have actually gone and visited Afghanistan and looked at the Pashtuns and how they actually do a lot of things that are very, very similar to what the teachings of the Torah were. Like, Pashtunwala, I'm not sure if you've heard this, is the commandments of the Torah, which the Jews actually used to, back before we were exiled, were practicing. And it's hard for people to let go of that belief. And I absolutely understand that. I mean, when you saw the website and the concept that the Pashtuns are Israelis, one of the lost 10 tribes, how did that make you feel? What was your first reaction to that? Because obviously this is something absolutely new.
Well, it is something that's new to me, that specific information, but I am aware of other people who claim that they have some kind of connection to Israel. Well, you have some people down in Ethiopia, even in India, who practice some Jewish traditions. And it's something that I would like to look into further. It's
Absolutely.
I'm hungry for knowledge.
I can tell just from the book. You're hungry for new knowledge. You're hungry for something. You're exploring to find something different, and you've got that mindset.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to start asking you the questions regarding our the series we're doing now. If you can just basically, is it true that the traditional Jews, as in the Judaic tradition, that they believe in the concept of bin Joseph? I mean, the Christians obviously and the Muslims don't believe that, but what is your understanding of the concept of how the Jews believe? Because the Jews believe that there's two types of people who are going to come, bin Joseph and bin Dawood, which is Jesus. But they also say that they're going to come for the first time, not twice. But the Christians have a different take on it. So what do you have to say about bin Joseph and what the traditions of Christianity teach, and your opinion?
Okay. Well, when Jesus came in our Christian tradition, it is clear that he came from the tribe of Judah, and that is our belief. That's in the scriptures, and that really did shake up the Jewish world, and they've had some problems with it. So much later on, they've tried to they're still waiting for the Messiah to come the first time, and that they say, well, it wasn't Jesus basically from the line of Judah. We have a Messiah coming who's from the line of Joseph. But I think this is a fairly late addition. You know, you have Reshi, you have Maimonides, who have put that forward and tried to support it.
And do they have for that, according to their own books, or are they just something that they've actually come out any evidence?
Well, I haven't gone into it in great depth, simply because it's something that doesn't really raise its head too much in the Christian world.
Yeah. And the other question I had, John, is that do you consider, as a, in the context from a Christian point of view, do you consider Jews and Israelites to be the same thing? Because someone can become a Jew who's not an Israelite, they can become a Jew, but you can't become an Israeli or the children of Jacob or Isaac. So, what is your understanding in the Christian context? Do you see any difference between Jews and Israelites, or
Uh,
they are the same thing even?
well, often those things mesh, and there is an equivalency, but there are outliers, and it has always been the situation that even in the Old Testament times, that outsiders could convert and join themselves to the Hebrew society and become they weren't known till as Jews till much later.
And that's exactly what I was going to, the question entails is that Israelis existed before Judaism, Jews, the word Jews came out. So that's what I'm saying. Is it the same thing, even in Christianity, according to the Bible? Would you say that if you saw an Israelite and a person who's converted, who's a Hindu and became a Jew, would they be the same nation? Would they be considered as from the same tribe, from the same bloodline as Jacob and Abraham?
Well, the Christian viewpoint is that it is not so much bloodlines as it is a spiritual aspect. When somebody becomes a Christian, it can be from any tribe or nation, and they are grafted in to the family of God.
Yep. Yes. Yes.
And so therefore, if somebody wants to call themselves a Jew, there may be laws in Israel. Apparently, to be considered Jewish, you have to be from a Jewish mother.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly right, because you said the Christendom has left their doors open to the world. That's absolutely right. But Jews and Judaism and Israelis, they believe that we are the chosen God, people of God, and not only them, the 12 tribes. So they've basically shut the door. You can only be a Jew if you're an Israeli, and you're the chosen people of God. But in Christianity, as you said, the doors open for anyone. You're all the same. You're all equal. So that's why I just asked that question. Thank you for clarifying. And the next question is that in the Christian context, are Christians allowed to take sides between the 12 tribes if they have disputes, like if they have an argument or a fight, or they, because before the exile in 722 BC, before the Assyrians attacked, the Northern Kingdom and Judah were at civil war with each other. And like for example, right now that we're after 2,700 years, we've been awoken, like we're starting to realize who we are. If we have disputes, the Christians, from a Christian point of view, do you allowed to take sides, or if you like, if you do take sides, do you take the sides of what's righteous and what's commandments based on the Bible, or is it just because of the religious affiliation that the Jews, or they have to be Jews?
Well, the way that the Old Testament is written, it seems to be that there is a bias towards Judah over Israel, because it was stated many times that the kings of Israel were evil, and or mostly evil, except for one or two, and the kings of Judah were the good guys. Now, well, you did have Manasseh, who was a very bad guy, and there were some weak kings in there as well. But that is a long time ago, and I take the view that there is only one Jewish race now, and they've come through. Some of them are intermingled with other races and peoples. They've been exiled to various places, and there've been intermarriages. So it's difficult to track down exactly who was who.
So, yeah, yeah, that's true. Unless you do DNA tests. And in the Christian context, do you think that, for example, like the lost tribes, for example, our the name Israeli Pashtuns, do they, because they've obviously, as you said, they've intermingled and intermarried and changed culture and even they've become Muslims, do they have them as much right on the land of Zion as much as the Jewish Israelis? Do, according to the biblical and Christian view, even when they actually had the Northern Kingdom and Judah, the Israelis that actually were in the Northern Kingdom, they adopted a different religion. You'd be aware of that. But they still claim that we have right on the land. This land was given to all 12 tribes. Now, does that still apply today?
That is a very difficult and political question, and one which
Yes,
a politician would avoid at all costs, but I'm not a politician.
absolutely.
Israel is a country which has laws. It allows people of all religions who reside there to have the same rights as each other. If you are an Arab person in Israel, you can stand for parliament and be elected, and they do have some people there. That wouldn't apply across the board through the Middle East. But they are stuck with a fairly difficult situation, bringing people back after all that time into that land. And I would hate to be somebody who was given the job of working all those problems out.
I can understand. Yeah, it is political and it's very, very cool. You're absolutely right. Now, I'm good. Following up with the second question is that in the Christian context, do the Israelites, the 10 lost tribes, like Israeli Pashtuns, I would say, would they be still seen as the chosen people of God, regardless if they've been separated for 2,700 years? Because the Jews say that we're the chosen people of God. Now, is that just apply to the two tribes, Judah and Benjamin, or does it, regardless of what religious affiliations the rest of them have, does it apply to all of them, that they are all chosen by God, not just the two tribes?
Well, God has not finished with Israel, and he is not finished with the Jews. And it wasn't just the two tribes that were left. In the time of King Asa, which was around about 900 B.C., he was warring with the king of Israel, who was Bashar. And so there were a lot of people coming down from various
Yes.
tribes and defecting to Judah. So you have people from Simeon and some of the other tribes. And don't forget that the Levites were the ones who served in the temple. They didn't have a territory. So there are probably 5 or 6 tribes that ended up actually being part of Judah.
Yes, that's true.
So there are 10 lost tribes. Well, the tribe of Dan disappeared out of the equation. When the Book of Chronicles was written, that was during the time of the exile, and the people were coming back to Israel, but they had lost a lot of their identity. So one of the first things that they did in the book with the Book of Chronicles was to do the genealogies of the tribes. Well, they did 11 of them, and they left Dan out. Well, Dan was one of these difficult tribes that if there was any idolatry happening, they were the first ones to accept it. They had land given to them in an area which would be now round about Tel Aviv, and they found it too hard with the Philistines, so they were given territory up on the slopes of, well, Mount Hermon, which is the Golan Heights. So there was a city of Dan up there, and they couldn't do much good up there either, so they went down to Lebanon and joined themselves to the Phoenicians and became world travelers. They went everywhere.
Yeah. And from my understanding and my research, John, when Jesus did come, there was no such thing as Jews or Judaism. So because I'm sure that Jesus, from what I've understood from the Bible and reading, you know better, please correct me if I'm wrong. There was no such thing as Jews. So when did the word Jews or Judaism come into being after Jesus Christ? How long after was
Oh, well, I believe that they were
it
called Jews
before when he
long
was
before
crucified?
Jesus. When Assyria,
Were they? Okay.
when Assyria defeated, um, well, they called it Samaria, but it's really the name for the northern tribes, which is otherwise known as Israel. That was in
Yep.
722 BC. And so Judah was left behind. And
Yep.
Judah is what we get the word Jew from, Judah. And
Yep.
so that's from 722 BC. I believe they started to be called that even from that time.
Okay. But were all the Northern Kingdom, which was Israel, were they actually identifying themselves as the same as Judah, Jews, or were they identifying themselves differently compared to the Jews? Because that's what
Well,
the issue.
well, politically they were different, but even in the northern tribes, during the times of the three main feasts, or the people from the north would come down and worship in Jerusalem, even though they were fighting with each other half the time.
Yes.
So they did identify themselves spiritually as part of the God's chosen people, the 12 tribes.
Thank you very much. Your information is very, very, very knowledgeable. You seem to have a good understanding of history and the gospel and the Bible and history. I'm very, very glad to have you on this show, John. You've actually answered our questions in a way that a lot of traditional Christians might not actually have been able to answer. So I do really appreciate this, and it's an eye-opening experience to have that discussion with you. Now, going to the next question, in the Christian context, are the lost 10 tribes, even if they have become Christians, because there are some Israelites who have become Christians and Muslims, are they considered equal in the eyes of God from the Judaic tradition that they say that we're the chosen people? So does it really matter if you're a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim? Are you still equal to each other? Are you still chosen people? Would they have the same standing in front of God?
Um, from what I read from the Christian scriptures, that would not be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Christian point of view is that one only has a relationship to God through Jesus.
Yes.
And, I think Jews and Muslims do understand that that's the Christian position.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's a spiritual thing. Um, even for the Christians, Jesus said something about people who would, when they go before God, they'll say, well, I did this in your name, I did that in your name. And Jesus will say to them, I didn't know you.
Yes,
So the
yes, yes.
same thing applies to, I guess, everybody who doesn't have
Yep.
that relationship with God.
Absolutely. Very good answer. And what do you have to say about the third temple when it comes to how they're planning to build a third temple for the coming of the Messiah, and how that pans out according to your understanding in the Christian theology?
Um, well, once again, I might get into some difficulties with some of the traditional people, and a lot of those people are actually promoting the idea of the third temple
Yes.
and actively financing it and doing as much as they can because they believe that the Bible points to that. But
Yes.
in Revelation chapter 17, we see that the Apostle John actually identifies when the writing was. It said during the time of the sixth king, or that's the sixth Caesar, which was Nero, who died in 68 AD. The temple wasn't destroyed till 70, but the claim is that Revelation was written in 95 after the temple was destroyed. And there are many scriptures that describe, I think 7 times, an angel speaking from the temple, or angels in the temple. And people who believe in the believe that 95 AD is the correct date. So, well, that's after the destruction. So this must be in a third temple. But if the timing is correct that it was prior to 68 AD, the second temple still existed. And those angels are speaking from the existing temple. So it is quite possible that there is no requirement for the third temple to be built. Not good news for, some people who are looking towards that and hoping for it. But there's evidence to the contrary.
Okay, absolutely. It's a very interesting viewpoint you have, John. Very different to the traditional Christians, obviously you do. And so, but based on your research and understanding, towards the end of times, based on the chapter of Revelations, what role or significance do the 10 lost tribes have towards the end of times? Like, would they be reunifying, or is that something that has to happen first before Jesus comes down, or is that something that he does?
Well, Jesus speaks about the 12 tribes, when the end times are complete and he is ruling and reigning on this world. He'll be reigning over the 12 tribes. Now, at the moment, they are totally mixed up. I'd say most Jews have got no idea which tribe they would belong to, except maybe some of the Levites. So God, as I said earlier, is not finished with Israel, and he's not finished with the Jews and the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes will continue on, but I do not have any theories on exactly how that will come about. It's just that that's what's stated.
And the covenant that was given to Abraham and the children, the 12 tribes, is that something that is going to go eternally, or is that something that is outdated for the 12 tribes, specifically speaking, the covenant that they had with God, with Abraham and the 12 tribes?
Well, the thing with covenants is that they are eternal, but covenants can be reviewed and improved. You can add greater benefits as time goes by, because you started off with the covenant with Abraham, then there was the covenant with Moses, and then there is the new covenant in the New Testament.
Yes.
Previously, people did not have direct contact with God. They would have to do it through the priests, and they would have their yearly sacrifices. And but with the new covenant, you got all of the benefits that have ever been given throughout the ages, but the new covenant gives a direct relationship to God through Jesus.
Absolutely. And as far as this is coming, this other question I have, like following up from what you just explained, this is believed according to the Jews that the 12 tribes will reunify before the Messiah comes. Now, in Christian theology and Islamic theology, there's no any kind of scripture or any kind of opinion about it, that who's going to do it. They say the Jews believe that the children of Joseph had a birthright, and it will be the children of Manasseh and Ephraim from those two tribes that will actually it's their job and duty to fulfill and reunify the 12 nations, the 12 tribes. Now, what does Christianity believe about the birthright of the sons of Joseph and them being responsible for you reunifying the 12 tribes before the Messiah comes?
I haven't really heard too much opinion floating around about that. I think that is more a Jewish thing.
Yes.
In the Jewish society. But I can understand how that doctrine came about and why it came about. It would be very difficult for a Jew who is expecting a Messiah to come for the first time for them to accept the line from Judah.
Yes.
So this new idea has had to be formulated so that they have something, well, they believe that it's solid. But I might have some difficulties with that. But I haven't studied the scriptures that they're relying upon.
It's not in the Christian context. Yeah, you're right. It's absolutely a Judaic, a Jewish tradition and belief system. It's not. I didn't find that anywhere in the Christian or Islamic theology or any writings or commentaries by any of the scholars that we've had all these years. Now, when it comes to the other question is that when Jesus comes back again, which I believe he was the Messiah. There's no doubt. As a Muslim, I believe he was the Messiah. He had a miraculous birth and all that stuff. But when it comes and Jesus comes down, you've got three different groups. Basically, when it comes to the children of Israel, you've got the Jews on one side, then the Muslim Israeli Pashtuns on the other side who are Muslim. Then we've got Israeli Christians as well who are converting to Christianity. So how does that play towards when Jesus comes down? What's going to happen according to Christian theology? Because the Jews believe everyone's going to become a Jew, and the Christians believe everyone's going to become a Christian, and the Muslims believe everyone's going to become a Muslim. So what's, in your opinion, like when Jesus comes, how is he going to approach this situation, and who's right and who's wrong?
Okay, well, my opinion doesn't count for anything, but I can quote from scripture where Jesus said there will be a sorting out the wheat from the tares. And he told a parable about an enemy that came in and sowed tares in the wheat field belonging to a farmer. And the question was, well, do we rip the tares out so that we can get a good wheat crop? And the answer was no, you let them grow together. And at the end, you can identify, initially they look the same. But at the end, the heads of the wheat bow over and the head of the tare stays vertical. And so the tares get taken out at the end. They get separated and thrown into the fire. So whichever point of view that the various factions take, that means that the one that God accepts will be taken into his kingdom and the others will be cast aside.
And just my second last question basically for you is that you've got a lot of evangelist Christians who are staunch supporters of Israel and for the state of Zion. They're Zionists, basically. Not even Christians. I wouldn't even call them Christians. They're Zionists. They strongly believe that Jews and the Israelis have to have a land and have to actually build a third temple. So where did they get that information from when the Catholics and Protestants and some other Christian denominations don't actually go with that teaching? So where did the evangelical Christians get this idea from?
Well, I think the idea has been around for a few hundred years, and it goes from that interpretation of Revelation, where they see those scriptures about the angels calling from the temple, and they believe it has to be a third temple. So that really is a driver of that particular theology. I do not subscribe to it, and I probably am disappointing some people who are Christian. They're very sincere about their beliefs, but
Yeah,
you can be sincere and wrong at the same time.
absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. And so lastly, John, do you think, are we at the end of times according to your understanding and your, because obviously you're a person who've studied history, you've studied the Gospels, and so a lot of people are claiming that according to the Revelations, we are the prophecies that were outlined in Revelations is getting fulfilled. Now, do you have the same belief system that we are according to people, some people that at end of times and we'll have Jesus coming soon?
Yes, well, I've got a few grey hairs, as you can see, but I believe that I will be around to see this.
Wow. Okay, so you believe that strongly. And what's the reason? Please clarify that for us.
Um, well, there are so many things that have been prophesied, and most of them have already happened, and we're really not needing anything much more to happen for the return of Christ.
Wow, because I wasn't really expecting that, because that's if you're according to your understanding and knowledge, if you believe you're going to be actually seeing that day, so that means we're very close, very close.
Oh, very close, and and I've got a few health conditions, so I'm on a what would you call it? The clock is ticking, but I
Yes.
think I've got enough time left.
Well, God bless you. I hope you do. And one more, so as far as this, because what you just told me is, for me, it's a bit of astonishing to say that you actually believe you are going to see them you in your own time, in your own lifetime, as you said. Do a lot of other Christians have the same belief that this is how soon it is, or do they believe that there's a while left?
Well, the ones that I'm speaking to, the majority are positive that there isn't much time left. So get ready and be ready for the coming of the Lord.
And are we going to have Jesus come? The Armageddon. Armageddon is something that has been, we know, or everyone knows about it. Now, is that something that the Armageddon is close as well? Are we going to have the war of Armageddon before Jesus comes? So are we close to Armageddon right now, basically?
Well, yes, Armageddon. Well, I've written an article about that, and it's a very complex thing to. I can't explain it in 5 minutes. I'd have to do a prolonged explanation, but Armageddon is the very last battle. Uh, that is the battle when it appears that Israel is going to be destroyed, but then Jesus comes. Well, the enemies are destroyed, and then Jesus comes to reign and rule upon the earth over the 12 tribes.
And well, it's a lot of people say we're going to have nuclear war, Armageddon. Is it going to wipe out the entire whole earth? Or because that's one thing that a lot of people who are religious, whether they're Christians or Muslims, they think that if we're going to have Armageddon and we're going to have nuclear war and 80% of the world's population is going to get wiped out, what is Jesus going to come down to? Who is he going to come down to? That's something that a lot of people are skeptical about. And what is your opinion about that?
Um, well, the Christian Bible does say that unless Jesus intervenes, everyone would be wiped out. So it's going to be bad.
Yeah, yeah, from my understanding. And so, as far as you said, I've basically concluded all the questions that I had. And coming to the point of Armageddon, that's another series we can actually do with you. And I've actually read what you've written to me about Armageddon as well. And as you said, that is a very complex issue. It's very political. And it's got a lot of other perceptions and perspectives that you have to look from. And we would love to have another series, you talking just about Armageddon and how you think, in your point of view and from your research, what it entails and how it's going to happen.
Yes, that would be most welcome. And I've got a lot of material to add to what I've already sent you.
That's perfect. And I would love to actually organize that series whenever it's possible, because that is also an interesting topic. And it's something that we're going to be facing, unfortunately, John. You're well aware of that. And the more we know and the more that people know about it, it's something that people can get ready for. As you just said, get ready for it. People don't even know what to get ready for. They've heard the name Armageddon. They don't know what it entails, what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and how the world and humanity is going to be saved.
Oh, yes. Well, I've done some analysis on even that name Armageddon, as you have seen, and it's not going to be in the location that everybody has pinpointed. The geography is off by about 150 kilometers.
Wow, that's a lot. That is a lot. And these information that you have found regarding this, like even Armageddon, why has the rest of the world of Christendom in the past 2000 years missed it? Well, why could they have not come to the same conclusion that you have? Why is it because the information wasn't there, or it didn't reach them, or they just avoided it?
Well, some of the information that you might see that is looks fairly brilliant wasn't all me. I
Yeah.
have stood on the shoulders of giants, so to speak, and I've built on information that other people have started off with and expanded it. I am not the font of all knowledge, but I'm open to hearing from God. If He has something to show me, I don't get it from direct revelation. He allows me to go and search for information, and sometimes I'll be reading and I'll skip over something, and a voice in my head says, hang on, go back to a couple of lines. There's something important in there. Sure enough, there is.
Thank you very much, John, for having this interview with me. And I'm very glad to see the different perspective. And I'm sure our viewers are going to be enjoying this as well, because what you've said is very untraditional, unorthodox. And from what you've discussed is something that is logical. It's very logical and rational. And as far as this series is concerned, we're concluding with that, but we would love to have you on just to speak about Armageddon, because that is a very, very important issue as well.
Oh, I'm sure. I haven't spoken on it to any groups yet, but it was one that I was hoping to do some speaking about. So you can help me with that.
Yeah, you don't need any help there. As far as I understand, you're an educated man, you're smart. And if you could just before I can conclude the interview, if you can just give us a bit of background about your life and what you've done. You said what you studied and like what what your throughout history of life the journey you went through, so people get more information of how you actually ended up writing a book.
Oh, okay. Well, I had some terrible things happen to me early in life. A big accident, and I had was thrown out from a track accident into sharp rocks, which penetrated my skull just above the right ear there. It did affect my personality, and what it drove me to do was into reading. So as a kid, instead of going out and playing, I used to read 3 books a week. I would come home and I would go into the encyclopedias and I'd be looking stuff up. I just love to soak in information, but over the years, I've just done various things and different, very, very different careers. I was in real estate, I was in car detailing, chemical manufacturing, franchising, mortgage finance, transportation. But I just always had this desire to learn and to understand how God did things. You know, that was always my question. Lord, let me understand how you think. You know, show me something. And there's a promise in the Bible that says, call unto me and I will answer thee and show thee great and mighty things which you don't know. So
Absolutely.
I claim that promise.
Man, I agree with you. I concur. So do you actually do much preaching as well, John, when it comes to the Christian community? Do you do a lot of preaching?
I had done a few small preaching stints, but I had some health issues, and so I've focused mainly on writing, and well, these days I do a bit of pastoral care, and I just like helping people.
That's absolutely fantastic. Once again, thank you very much for your time, John, and your information has been absolutely helpful and wonderful and eye-opening.
Well, thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you very much for that.
God bless you.
God bless you too.